Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Blacklogic. I do apologize. I got my times missed. I'm an hour late. I suppose I started at 6:10 Central Standard Time, but nonetheless, charge it to my mind and not to my heart. But let's get right into the conversation at hand. That Black Americans, foundational Black Americans, will never be deported from the United States of America. And I've been hearing this from the immigrant class, the illegal immigrant class, as well as the white nationalists and some white supremacists. But for centuries, foundational Black Americans, as you heard in the media and on the news and social media, FBAs, those whose lineage in the United States traces back to 1526 and 1619. FBA is not a group, an organization, a gang, a company, or an affiliation. It has to do with your lineage, and whose lineage traces back to 1526 and 1619. And we have been the backbone of this nation, especially our ancestors. Despite relentless oppressions and systematic attempts to erase our contributions, our roots in this land are deeper than any law, policy, or political rhetoric that you may hear. The idea that FBAs could be deported is not only baseless, but it's an insult to our history. And the reality is this: we built this country. We fought for this country. We are this country. There is nowhere else for us to go because we've always been here. Before the United States even was a concept, Black Americans have been here. And people have been really missing the mark. Before there was even a United States of America, foundational Black Americans were here on this land. From the indigenous people prior to slavery, from the first enslaved Africans who arrived in the early 1500s under the Spanish rule to force labor on millions who built the economic infrastructure of the nation that we know today. We constructed America from the ground up, brick by brick, railroad by railroad, and plantation by plantation. We're the reason why this country is as rich and powerful it is today. We're the foundation. Yeah, there's been other immigrant groups that have come along and modernized America, but we're talking about the first road, the railroads, okay? A lot of the monument builders, the Capitol where the government housed themselves. We're talking about the White House, the U.S. Capitol, and many other American historic buildings were built by enslaved Black people who are foundational Black Americans. The Southern economy, based on cotton, tobacco, sugar, and Indiegogo, was driven by our forced labor, turning America into a global economic superpower. And even after slavery, Black labor fueled the Industrial Revolution, contributing to steel railroads and infrastructure that shaped modern America. If Americans were to deport foundational Black Americans, then by that same logic, they will have to tear down everything we built. You don't deport the architects and the builders of your home. Here's another thing. If we are to be deported, they will have to deport themselves. You see that? Because a lot of people say, oh, you can't be illegal on stolen ground. I guess that accounts for everybody. And the idea that foundational Black Americans also collapses under the weight of legal reality, the 14th Amendment that was ratified in 1868, clearly states that all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and the state where they reside. This amendment, as Donald Trump said, for a lot of people who may like him or may not like him, depending on who you are, this amendment was specifically designed to secure the rights of formerly enslaved Black Americans after the Civil War. Look it up. He said that. Not in those exact same words. I was paraphrasing. But unlike illegal immigrants who come by America by choice, not by force, foundational Black Americans were forcibly brought here, stripped of our original identities, and forged a new identity in America through struggle and resilience. Nobody has been what we've been through. We've been going through the longest Holocaust, and that puts no shame on the Jewish Holocaust. I'm just labeling it as a Holocaust as well, because in some regards, when we look at the news and how the race soldiers with badges treat our people, we see that we're still in somewhat of a Holocaust where we are being over-policed. Americans before America even existed as a formal nation, unlike other groups who can go back home. These guys can go back home. Where Black Americans going to go? West Africa, East Africa, South Africa, North Africa? What country do we belong to? That's right. Because at one point in time, if you look at the history of Black Americans, we're from all over the African continent, mostly by the way of West Africa. But they brought us all here in different means. And there was already original Black indigenous people here prior to the European colonizers, pilgrims, whatever you want to call them, before they all mixed and matched us together. And we transformed a new group. We transformed into a new culture. And that's what people now understand. This is our country. When they say they were going to deport Black Americans, deport me back to D.C. Yeah. Deport me back to Virginia and Maryland. That's where you have to deport me back to. Yeah, you might have to deport some of my friends back to Kansas or back to Arizona, but we're not leaving these United States because we belong here. If you're illegally in the country, don't put your strife on us. Don't put your struggle on us. We've been carrying the cape. We've been carrying the weight for other groups for far too long. And I'm so glad. I'm so proud, and Black people in general, even though we're not a monolith, I'm just so glad there's only a very select few who are trying to stump the ground for people who are legally in the country. Miss me with that. And here's another thing. The government itself acknowledges this through every major piece of legislation, from Reconstruction to civil rights. Oh, well, he's thinking about rolling back civil rights. Well, let me see it. Let me see it. Because again, foundational Black Americans, we have fought in every war that shaped this nation, often without full citizenship rights. You still proving our patriotism, just like anything else. There's a lot of people who come to this country who joined the military, who was willing to fight and stand with other people, right, from this country, and put their lives on the line and sacrifice for their citizenship, the same way foundational Black Americans did during the war. The Revolutionary War. A Black man was the first American killed in the Boston Massacre, making him the first martyr of the Revolution because they put us on the front lines. The Civil War from 1861 to 1865, 200,000 Black soldiers fought the Union, helping to end slavery. They fought for the Union, helping to end slavery. World War I and World War II. Despite segregation and racism, Black soldiers fought for democracy abroad while being denied it at home. We was all across the world fighting for democracy while being denied the very same rights in our own country. The Vietnam War, the Korean War, the Iraqi War, the Afghanistan War. Foundational Black Americans continue to serve, die, and defend this country while still battling racism. How can a nation deport those who have bled, died, and sacrificed for its existence? Deportation is just unrealistic for us. It's a betrayal of America's own history. From music to fashion, from sports to politics, Black Americans have defined American culture. Imagine America without jazz, blues, hip hop, rock and roll. Yeah. Black Americans are not about hip hop and R&B, but we've created jazz, rock and roll, soul food, barbecue. And to some regards, we have a lot of Black Americans who have created Creole cuisine. The Harlem Renaissance, Civil Rights Movement, Black Panther Party, culturally and political movements that reshape democracy. And I don't have to name all the sorts of figures that we have, from Malcolm X to Dr. King to Ida B. Wells to Frederick Douglass, the architects of the modern human rights. This country has been shaped by our voice, our rhythms, our struggles, and our triumphs. America without foundational Black Americans is like a body without a soul. You know what I'm talking about. You can't deport the soul of the nation. You guys saw when I was showing Whitney Houston early this morning. That's the soul of the nation. Unlike illegal immigrants who have a homeland to return to, who had a homeland that they fled from to, because They didn't work hard. Yeah. Oh, well, you know, these immigrants, they come over here, they work hard, they do this, they do that. Why didn't they work hard in their own country? Oh, well, it's because of the opportunities. Why didn't they create their own opportunities? The weather's changing. It got hot in here. I should put the AC on. I'm not mad, family. I'm just passionate. They have a homeland to return to that they can build up and get it out the mud, but they're not doing that. And guess what this? Foundational Black Americans, we have no connection to any existing African nation. We don't have any connection. I take that back. The only connection we have is by our DNA when we do 23andMe or Ancestry.com or African American Ancestry. Our ancestors were stolen from various regions and we were mixed together. We were stripped of our language, our culture, and our tribal identities. The descendants of those enslaved from a very unique history. Foundational Black Americans separate from the modern African or Caribbean identities. Because you know what? We always get labeled, well, you're African American. Why doesn't no one call Caribbeans African Caribbeans? They just go with Caribbeans. They just go, oh, I'm Jamaican. And here's the thing about all of these nationalities. They're not a race. It's a nationality. Because we see in Jamaica, they have Chinese Jamaicans. They have Indian Jamaicans. So Jamaicans is not synonymous with being Black. It's not, because it's your nationality. A lot of people get those confused. Now, granted, to a certain degree, because those of our ancestors 1,000 years back in Africa, we share African ancestry, some of the history, some of the culture, some of the struggles. Because when we came here, as our forefathers came here, our ancestors came here, they merged all that culture, all the foods and all those things in together. But here's the point I'm making. No African country recognizes foundational Black Americans as citizens. There's no country said, Black Americans, if you come here, you have automatic citizenship. You don't have to pay a dime. No, when you go to Africa and you try to get your citizenship, you're going to have to pay and you're going to have to slay. You're going to have to show him that you can financially take care of yourself, because they're not going to take care of you. They're not going to even give you your citizenship. They won't even give you a dual passport. There is no going back. There is no going back because we never left. We were taken. We were traded. We were sold. America is our only home. Even today, Black Americans contribute billions of dollars to the U.S. economy through labor, business, sports, entertainment, and consumer spending, especially consumer spending. The Black buying power is projected to exceed $1.8 trillion by the end of 2025. Black innovators continue in tech, finance, and entrepreneurship, creating thousands of jobs. I just told you guys that if you ever looked up Emmett McHenry, who created the .com, who created the first internet search engine, look up Emmett McHenry. He's the one who did the DNS server, .com, .gov, .edu. He's the reason behind this, not the one you see on your screen. I'm not popping any graphics up except for this one. I can show you a lot of other inventions, but I've done this before. What about Ron Carter, the one who made the video ring doorbell? We're talking about innovation because, see, I don't want to talk about music. That's so cliche. I don't want to talk about sports. That's so stereotypical. Let's talk about the things that people think that we're not good in, like technology, like science, engineering, and math. What about those things? Because if America would deport FBAs, it will cripple the industries, devastate the cities. It would definitely devastate the cities, causing an economic collapse. You don't deport your most valuable assets, do you? See, and for a long time, non-Black demographics undervalue Black people. Half of that is because they don't believe that we've ever contributed anything to America. And that's because they regularly be ignorant and rather just do a quick Google search to see, wow, I did not know all the things that Black Americans invented. Oh, wow, I did not know they fought in every major war. Oh, wow, I didn't know they made these laws that helped us out. Just rather to go to the white supremacist side of town and develop that and adopt that ideology. Foundational Black Americans have been the moral consensus and the moral compass of the country. Every fight for justice, abolishment, civil rights, prison reform, police accountability has been led by foundational Black Americans. Without foundational Black Americans, America will still be a white supremacist dictatorship. We still have white supremacists, but at least it's not a dictatorship. Without foundational Black Americans, America would never have faced its original sin of slavery to even acknowledge it as being bad. Without foundational Black Americans, democracy as we know it would not exist. And that's why we have some form of democracy, but we understand according to the Constitution, we live in a republic. And the idea that foundational Black Americans could be deported, it is a fantasy fueled by ignorance, racism, and historical amnesia, because we built the country, we bled for the country, we defined this country, we are the country. And you have to go home, and we don't. We're already here. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
The atrocities that African Americans have been through, I'm surprised we are this peaceful. Yeah. Surprised we're this peaceful to others. We're just as violent to each other. But the atrocities.
And just as a disclaimer, Godfrey is not a foundational Black American. He is from Nigeria, but at least he's speaking the truth on our lineage.
That have happened to African Americans. That's why I believe African Americans are the strongest motherfuckers on the planet, because the shit that they've gone through, and they're still around, educated, building universities, inventing damn near everything in America, is unreal. When you, this motherfuckers can barely build an app, and motherfuckers invented what? GPS is a Black woman. 3D imaging is a Black woman. Laser eye surgery is a Black woman. Escalators a Black inventor. Elevators a Black inventor. The roller coaster is Granville T. Woods. Roller coaster, everything.
Internet, the cell phone.
The cell phone. I was just watching the thing on the cell phone. Our video games is Jerry Lawson in Silicon Valley. They try not to mention him, but he's the reason why we have Xbox, Atari. He did the first, before Atari, the F1 series. Jerry Lawson, a Black dude who invented home videos. Super Soaker, Lonnie Jackson. It just goes on. Sanitary napkins.
And by the way, the Super Soaker maker was not Lonnie Jackson, it's Lonnie Johnson. He also worked for NASA as an engineer.
It's a woman. Our ADT, our security system, is a Black woman in Queens, Mary Van Brighton. In 1966, she invented the home security. All of this shit we did to move the society ahead, and we still get shit on. The African Americans still get shit on. I can say I'm African American because I was born in America, and I know it's like to be called nigga and all this other shit. But African American.
No, let's keep a spade a spade. You've been born in America and you are Black, but you're not a foundational Black Americans. And those are the tributes that you were making to our lineage. It's a very, very difference. It's kind of like someone from Ukraine who comes to America and they born a child, and then all of a sudden they're American, right? Because they was born on this ground, they were naturalized. But we're talking about a lineage that is rich. We will never go to Nigeria and all the great advances that Nigerians made and say, because I was born in Nigeria, but my parents are Black American, that I'm Nigerian. No, more times than not, you are what your parents are.
In history, the shit that you talking about open heart surgery, Daniel Hale, plasma, Charles Drew. We can keep going. Surgical equipment, Black people inventing, just constantly inventing, and they took everything and lied. But now things are coming into the light with all these Black inventors. And black people are still thriving. Black women have the highest degrees in America. Highest degrees in America. These are the same women that were operated on with no anesthesia on their vaginas by that Dr. Mims guy who they just took down his statue in New York. These are black slave girls raped, but they're #1 in academics. The fuck? Black people are the strongest, man. African Americans are the strongest.
Well, we thank you for the tribute. We thank you for calling those things out. But thank you guys for joining me this evening. I see Robert T, Moss, Lewis Knowles, Armageddon. Let's see some of your comments here. Give me 1 second. Good evening. Good evening. Someone's making a joke. Elon Musk is the greatest African American. Okay. He's probably the greatest African American descendant of enslavers and apartheid people, you know, by the way of Denmark and those Northern European countries. But I digress. Let's see. We are the foundation of America, Armageddon. Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Thank you guys for joining me here this evening. I kind of went away from my normal broadcast of giving you guys different pieces on the news. But again, I had to point this out because I kept hearing mostly liberals and Democrats who some are Black Americans and some are Black immigrants who have naturalized or became U.S. citizens. And then a lot of people from the illegal immigrant community making videos and TikToks about, oh, you Black Americans should be worried too. No, we're not worried. We good. This is Blacklogic.